All right, so you're prepping for a Brazier interview. Congrats on getting to this stage. We've got a whole stack of RoleCatcher resources here. And today, we're going to deep dive into those to help you absolutely nail that interview. Think of this as a crash course tailored just for you.
You know what I really love about these role capture guides is how practical they are. They break down the whole career path from like what the job actually is all about, all the way to the skills you need to actually move up in the ranks. Plus, they have this amazing AI that helps you tailor your responses to match specific roles.
Yeah, it really is like having your own personal career coach and like a tech-savvy assistant all rolled into one. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's start with the basics for anyone who might not know. What exactly is a brazier? Some folks might picture someone out there, tending a backyard barbecue.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, a love of fire might come in handy. But braziers are dealing with a whole different kind of heat. They're these skilled artisans who join pieces of metal together using brass or copper alloys, and they do it at super high temperatures. We're talking creating strong, precise bonds in materials like aluminum, silver, even gold.
So it's like soldering, but on a much bigger, more intense scale.
Exactly. The heat and the materials involved make a much stronger bond than soldering, which is why it's perfect for anything from like super intricate jewelry to those heavy-duty industrial components.
Got it. Okay, so now we've got a good picture of what a brazier actually does. Let's get into the real reason we're here, the interview. RoleCatcher gives us 9 sample questions, and we're going to break down each one, give you some insider tips on how to craft answers that will really stand out.
Remember, these sample questions are designed to really figure out your skills, your knowledge, and whether you're the right fit for the role. It's your chance to showcase your passion, your experience, your understanding of the brazing world.
All right, question number 1. What inspired you to pursue a career as a brazier? Now, this one might sound simple, but it's a golden opportunity to set yourself apart.
Absolutely. You want to steer clear of those generic answers like, it seemed like a decent job, or I'm good with my hands. Interviewers want to see that spark. They want to know you've genuinely thought about this as a career path.
So how can you make your answer really stand out?
Take a trip down memory lane. Think about any experiences that ignited your interest in working with metal. Maybe a school project that really captivated you, or a family member who worked in a related field. Make it personal, make it specific, and tie it to those skills you've picked up along the way.
So it's all about storytelling instead of just listing facts.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what can help you weave that perfect story? RoleCatcher's AI. It can analyze your story, offer ways to make it even more engaging, and even tailor it to resonate with the specific company you're interviewing with.
It's like having your own personalized scriptwriter.
Precisely. Okay, let's move on to question number 2. How do you make sure you meet the quality standards for brazing? Now, this one is all about showcasing your professionalism, your attention to detail, your commitment to producing top-notch work.
So it's not enough to just say, I do good work. You've got to back it up with concrete examples and show you really understand those quality control procedures.
For sure. Break down the brazing process, preparing those materials, picking the right filler metal, controlling that heat, inspecting every finished joint. Each step needs meticulous attention to detail, and you need to show how you approach each stage.
So a solid answer could include talking about specific tools or techniques you use for accuracy, or maybe describing a time when you spotted a flaw and took steps to fix it.
Exactly. And don't be shy about mentioning certifications or training you've got related to quality control. It shows you're serious about your craft and that you're up to date with industry standards.
Now let's toss in a potential follow-up question here. Can you give me an example of a time you had to deal with a quality issue?
Boom! This is your chance to shine a spotlight on your problem-solving skills. Have a concise and specific anecdote ready to go, one that really highlights your ability to identify, analyze, and solve those quality-related challenges.
So you're walking the interviewer through the whole situation. What was the problem? How did you approach it? What steps did you take to fix it? What was the final result?
Precisely. You're showcasing your critical thinking skills, your ability to work solo, and that dedication to getting high-quality results.
Okay, moving on to question number 3. Can you explain the difference between brazing and welding? This one might feel basic, but it's your shot to show off your knowledge of the fundamentals. Now you can explain technical stuff clearly and concisely.
Never underestimate the power of clarity and conciseness. Interviewers want to know you can communicate those complex ideas in a way that's easy to grasp, especially if you're working with a team or dealing with clients.
So how do you hit that sweet spot? How do you nail this explanation?
Start with the key differences. The temperatures involved, the types of filler metals used, and the strength and durability of the joint that you end up with. But don't stop at just the technical stuff.
Right. To really wow them, you can take it a step further.
Yeah.
Explain why those differences matter.
Exactly. So you could mention applications where brazing wins over welding or vice versa, show that you get the nuances of each process.
And hey, remember RoleCatcher's AI. It can help polish that explanation, make sure it's both spot on and engaging.
For sure. Okay, let's crank up the heat with question number 4. How do you keep yourself and others safe while brazing? This one is super important because it shows you're aware of those potential dangers and that you're committed to keeping the work environment safe.
Yeah. Safety is paramount in any job that involves your hands, especially when you're dealing with scorching temperatures in molten metal. You need to demonstrate you understand safety protocols like the back of your hand and that you're proactive about preventing hazards.
Absolutely. So when crafting your answer, start by outlining that essential personal protective equipment, PPE. Gloves, goggles, the whole shebang.
But don't just stop at the basics. Right.
Right. Go beyond that. Talk about how you assess the work area for potential hazards, how you handle those hot materials and equipment safely, and how you communicate with your team to prevent accidents.
And be ready for that classic follow-up question. Tell me about a time when you had to address a safety issue on the job.
Here we go again. This is your chance to share a real-world example that shows how proactive you are about safety and your ability to handle those tricky situations with a cool head.
You're highlighting those problem-solving skills, your ability to make smart decisions on the fly, and your commitment to protecting yourself and everyone around you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive into a question that really tests those problem-solving skills. How do you troubleshoot brazing issues? This one is all about proving you can think on your feet and adjust when things go off script.
Right, because it's one thing to follow a set of instructions, but it's a whole other ballgame to be able to identify and fix problems all on your own. Interviewers want to see that resourcefulness, that ability to think outside the box.
Exactly. So when tackling this question, walk them through your thought process, how you pinpoint the root cause of a problem, what steps you take to diagnose it, what resources or tools you use to find those solutions.
No vague answers here.
Right. Be specific. Describe a time you successfully tackled a brazing problem. Highlight each step, the challenges you faced, and the outcome you achieved.
And this is where RoleCatcher's career insights come in handy, right?
Absolutely. As you move up the ladder from junior to senior brazier, your troubleshooting responsibilities change, and that ability to handle tougher challenges becomes even more valuable.
So it's not just about showing off your current skills, but also highlighting your potential to grow and evolve in the field. Okay, now on to question number 6, which zeroes in on your technical know-how. Can you describe your experience with different brazing techniques?
Time to let those skills shine. This is all about showcasing the range and depth of your abilities and all those techniques you've mastered over time.
But it's not just about listing them off.
Right.
It's about showing you understand when and why to use each technique.
You got it. Think about the metals you've worked with, the equipment you've used, and the types of joints you've created with different techniques. So, for example, you might talk about your experience with torch brazing, furnace brazing, or induction brazing, highlighting those unique quirks and uses of each method.
And again, no just rattling off a list. Share specific examples of projects where you've put those techniques into action. Talk about the challenges you faced and the results you nailed. It's all about showcasing that hands-on experience and your ability to adapt to different situations.
Remember, RoleCatcher's AI can break down that job description and highlight the specific brazing techniques that are most important for that particular role.
So you're basically tailoring your answer to emphasize those high-demand skills, making your application even stronger.
Exactly. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of flux with question number 7. Can you explain the role of flux in brazing? This one isn't just about knowing the definition, it's about showing you understand why flex is so vital to the brazing process and how it impacts the quality of what you create.
Right. It's about proving that you're not just following steps blindly. You understand the science behind the craft and why each element matters for getting those perfect results.
Start by explaining what flux is in a clear way. Its main job is to clean those metal surfaces and prevent oxidation during the heating process.
But then take it up a notch.
Right.
Right.
Explain how flux affects the flow and stickiness of the filler metal and how it helps make that brazed joint strong and flawless. You could even mention different types of flux and when to use each one for different metals and applications.
And I bet they'll throw in a follow-up question like, what happens if you use the wrong flux or mess up the application?
Be prepared for that. Explain those potential consequences, like a weak joint porosity or even contaminating the base metal.
By anticipating those follow-ups, you're showing you really know your stuff and that you can think critically about those potential pitfalls.
For sure. All right, question number 8. Can you describe your experience in working with different metals during brazing? This one builds on your earlier talk about brazing techniques, but now the focus is on the materials themselves.
Each metal has its own personality, its own challenges when it comes to brazing. They want to know you're comfortable working with a variety of metals and that you know how to adjust your techniques accordingly.
Right. Be prepared to discuss specific metals you've worked with, highlighting those different brazing techniques and filler metals needed for each one.
So you could talk about your experience with aluminum, which needs careful cleaning and prep to remove that oxide layer. Or you could discuss brazing copper, which is great at conducting heat, but needs precise temperature control to avoid overheating.
Exactly. It's all about showing that you're adaptable and that you understand those subtle details of working with different metals.
And here again, RoleCatcher's Career Insights can provide some helpful context. As you gain experience, you'll likely encounter a wider range of metals, and those brazing challenges get more complex. Showing you're aware of this career progression demonstrates your thinking long-term.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least, question number 9. Can you explain the importance of preheating in brazing? Another fundamental concept that's crucial for creating top-quality brazed joints. This is your chance to show off your understanding of those thermal processes and how they affect the strength of the bond.
Right. It's not just about knowing the definition. You've got to explain how preheating influences the flow and wetting of that filler metal and how it helps prevent defects like incomplete joints or porosity. You might even want to mention specific temperature ranges and holding times for different metals and techniques.
And this is a perfect opportunity to emphasize your attention to detail and how carefully you follow procedures. Explain how you figure out the right preheating settings for each job, how you keep a close eye on that temperature, and how you make sure those base metals are heated evenly.
And of course, brace yourself for that potential follow-up. What happens if you don't preheat enough, or if you overheat the base metals?
Be ready to explain those potential defects like cracks, distortion, or even melting the base metal entirely.
It's all about demonstrating your in-depth knowledge and that ability to think critically about those potential problems. Remember, these 9 questions are just a starting point.
Absolutely. RoleCatcher's interview guides are packed with even more questions and resources to get you ready for anything. But don't forget about the secret weapon.
RoleCatcher's AI.
You got it. It can analyze your answers, give you personalized feedback, and even suggest ways to tweak your responses to perfectly match the specific job you're after. It's like having a virtual interview coach right there in your corner, helping you refine your answers and present yourself in the best possible light.
So use these resources to your advantage. Practice your answers. And walk into that interview feeling like a total rock star.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of brazing. So in part 1, we tackled those tough interview questions, get you prepped for success.
Right now, we're kind of shifting gears a bit. It's not just about knowing the right answers. It's about understanding the whole picture, the work environments, the industry trends, even how technology is changing things up.
Exactly. And having that broader knowledge will not only make you a more well-rounded candidate, but it also lets you show genuine interest and insight during your interview. You've done your homework.
That's a great point. Okay, so RoleCatcher mentions that Braziers work in all sorts of places, from busy construction sites to high-tech factories.
Yeah, it can vary quite a bit.
Yeah, I could just imagine the sparks flying, the intense focus. It must be pretty demanding.
It is. It's a hands-on career, requires, a certain level of physical strength and being resilient, comfortable working with your hands, handling the heat, being aware of potential hazards. It's all part of the job.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just about having the technical skills. You got to have the right mindset, too, and the stamina to actually thrive in those environments.
Absolutely. But, even though it's demanding, RoleCatcher's pros and cons section highlights that creative side of brazing. It can be artistic. It's not just joining metal. It's crafting. It's problem solving, maybe even expressing yourself through your work.
That's really interesting. It's not always obvious to see the artistry in industrial work, but when you think about the precision, the attention to detail, the skill, it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of seeing the big picture, RoleCatcher mentions potential for entrepreneurship as a pro, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that caught my eye too. Just imagine taking your brazing skills and starting your own business. Custom fabrication repairs, maybe even artistic metalwork like the possibilities.
Right. The sky's the limit. It just shows how versatile brazing is and all the different paths it can open up. It's something we're thinking about even mentioning in your interview if you get the chance. It shows you're thinking long term and that you're interested in those wider possibilities.
For sure. And speaking of the future, let's talk about how technology is shaking things up in the brazing world. RoleCatcher points out that automation is becoming more common. Does that mean robots are taking over?
I wouldn't say taking over. It's more like an evolution, you know?
Yeah.
Automation can handle those repetitive tasks or the really high precision stuff, which actually makes things more efficient and safer for human workers.
Right. So instead of fearing those robots, Braziers can embrace the technology and see it as a tool that can enhance their skills and even broaden what they can do.
Absolutely. Being adaptable, being open to new tech, and being willing to learn new skills, those are qualities that employers really look for in today's job market, especially with everything changing so fast.
And guess what can help you showcase those qualities during your interview?
RoleCatcher's AI. Of course.
I knew you were going to say that.
It can help you figure out what specific skills you need to really thrive in this evolving landscape, and then it helps you tailor your resume and interview answers to highlight those skills.
So you're staying ahead of the curve and showing them you're a forward-thinking, adaptable candidate.
Precisely.
All right, so we've talked about the job itself, the interview questions, the work environment, and even got a glimpse into the future.
Yeah.
But what about going from newbie to expert? How do you actually move up in the brazing world?
That's where RoleCatcher's Career Stages section comes in handy. It outlines how your responsibilities and skills grow as you progress from junior brazier to intermediate, then to senior saw. It's like a roadmap for your career.
And even if you're just starting out, having that roadmap is super valuable. It helps you set goals, figure out what skills to develop at each stage, and visualize where your career could go.
It's fascinating how the focus changes as you move up, you know? At the junior level, it's all about mastering the basics, assisting those more experienced braziers, and building a strong foundation in safety. It's about soaking up knowledge and honing those core skills.
Right. It's like an apprenticeship, where you're proving yourself as a reliable member of the team.
Yeah, exactly. But then, as you transition to that intermediate stage, you start taking on more responsibility. You're operating equipment on your own troubleshooting problems, even mentoring those newer braziers. You're becoming a leader, a problem solver.
And then by the time you reach that senior level, you're not just doing tasks. You're shaping the whole brazing operation within your company. You're leading teams, developing and implementing those process improvements, collaborating with other departments to innovate and optimize.
It really is a journey of continuous learning and growth. And what's really cool is that RoleCatcher provides example profiles at each stage, giving you a real-world look at what a brazing career can actually look like.
It's one thing to read a job description. It's another to see how those responsibilities play out in real life.
Right. Those profiles really bring the career path to life. You can see the skills, the challenges, the impact you can have, even potential salary ranges at each level. It's inspiring and motivating.
So whether you're just starting out or aiming for the top out, a career in brazing is a journey of continuous learning, growth, and connection.
And speaking of connection, RoleCatcher also talks about the power of networking, which is so important no matter where you are in your career.
Absolutely. Going to industry events, joining online forums, connecting with people on LinkedIn, participating in local workshops. Those are all fantastic ways to expand your network and learn from others in the field.
It's about building those relationships, sharing ideas, and staying in tune with what's happening in the brazing industry. And you never know, those connections could lead to your next big break.
All right, and we're back for the final part of our brazing deep dives. So far, we've covered what the job is all about, how to handle those tricky interview questions, even peeked into the future of the industry.
Right, but now we're getting to the good stuff, the secret weapon that can really make a difference. RoleCatcher's AI-powered tools, these are designed to give you a serious edge in your job search. We've mentioned it a few times, but let's really break down how this AI can work for you.
You know, at the beginning, we talked about spending like 10% of our time focusing on RoleCatcher's unique features. Well, this is where it really shines. It's not just giving you information, it's actually helping you tailor your application and those interview skills.
Yeah, it takes things to a whole new level.
Right.
So the AI analyzes job descriptions, but it's not just about picking out keywords. It actually helps you rewrite your CV or resume to really emphasize the most relevant skills for that specific job. Imagine your application practically custom-made to match exactly what employers are looking for.
It's like having a pro resume writer working with you, but with AI power analyzing, thousands of successful applications.
Exactly. And it's not just throwing in fancy industry jargon. RoleCatcher's AI gets the subtleties of language, the specific requirements of each role. So you're not just sending a generic resume, you're making a targeted argument for why you are the perfect fit.
It's like a personalized pitch.
Exactly.
And it goes even further. It can analyze your cover letter, too, making sure it's not just a repeat of your resume, but a unique story that really grabs their attention.
It helps you explain why you're passionate about this role, how your skills and experience fit their needs. You're creating the perfect first impression.
Now let's talk about interview prep, because RoleCatcher's AI takes that to a whole other level. Imagine practicing your answers and getting instant feedback from an AI that's analyzed thousands of successful interviews. It's like having a virtual interview coach right there with you.
It can point out where you can improve, suggest different ways to say things to make your answers stronger, even analyze your tone and how you're speaking to help you project confidence and enthusiasm.
It's like having a mock interview, but with personalized AI insights. You can polish your answers, your delivery, making sure you're hitting all the right marks.
Absolutely. And here's something really cool. RoleCatcher's AI can be used by employers to find you. It flips the script. Instead of just applying for jobs, you're making yourself discoverable by companies who are actively looking for your skills.
So it's not just chasing opportunities, it's about attracting them to you. Talking about standing out from the crowd.
Exactly. And this AI is always learning, always getting better at matching candidates with the right jobs and helping them excel throughout the whole process.
So what does all this mean for you? Well, you've got knowledge about the job. You're prepped for those tough questions. And you've got this amazing tech advantage, thanks to RoleCatcher, feeling more confident. You should be.
Absolutely. But before we wrap things up, remember RoleCatcher mentioned artistic expression as the potential pro for Braziers. Take a moment to think about how you would bring that to life in your work.
It's easy to get caught up in the technical stuff, but brazing can be an art form too.
It really can. Think about those precise joints, the flow of the metal, how beautiful a well-crafted piece can be. There's room for creativity even in the most industrial settings.
So as you get ready for that interview, let your passion shine through. Show them you're not just skilled, you're someone who takes pride in their work, someone who sees the potential for art in every project. Good luck with your interview. You've got the skills, the knowledge, and the AI on your side.
Good luck.
Go get them. You've got the heat.